Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Chasing Energy. I'm your host, Daniel Lucas. Thank you for listening. Our guest today is Jack McGarry. Jack was named International Bartender of the Year by Tales of the Cocktail, and that is the bar industry's equivalent of the Academy Awards. This was in 2013. It was at a restaurant that he had co-founded called the Dead Rabbit. Now, the Dead Rabbit would go on to win other accolades, including the world's best bar, the best whiskey bar, the best bar team. Now, Jack also co-founded another restaurant called Blacktail. It is also an award-winning New York City cocktail bar. Jack is a very interesting character, and you might be wondering, what is a world's best bartender doing on an episode of Chasing Energy? I think you have a lot to gain by listening to Jack McGarry. This is a man who has faced his demons. He has turned many of his vices into virtues, and he shares his experience and his takeaways very freely. There's a lot to gain. I will give you a couple of quick snippets and then we'll get into the episode, but we start off by talking about pandemic challenges, and then we talk about a downward spiral that Jack gets caught in, how he recovers from that, what his life looks like today, how he maintains balance, and one of the last themes he briefly mentions that kind of ties into the whole episode is progress, not perfection. We talk about the difference between good and excellence is that you're relentlessly pursuing perfection. You never attain perfection, but you're relentlessly pursuing it. I am so proud of this episode, and I do also want to say one last thing before we get started. It was a massive amount of work to salvage the audio from this episode. There was a recording glitch that took place, and I was able to salvage some of the audio files from his computer. He was kind enough to offer to re-record the session, but it's kind of funny now that I read through the show notes and see that one of Jack's theme was progress, not perfection. So as I spent a great many hours editing this episode and trying to make it work and thinking to myself, maybe I should just put this on the back burner for now, which is also a code word for it's never going to get done. The last note I have in the show notes is Jack telling me progress, not perfection. Now, you want to have to talk about drinking your own Kool-Aid? This was it. And I read that line and said, no. It's not where I wanted it to be, but it needs to be done, and the world needs to hear this. It is an honor to present to you the driven, disciplined, and now proud father of a baby boy, that is Jack McGarry. Jack McGarry, thanks for being on Chasing Energy today.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Hey man, honored. And I know, how busy you are right now with the restaurant, and you're sort of adapting everything right now with the deliveries. I've looked at your webpage a few times. Tell me, before we get into your story, tell me a little bit of how you pivoted during the crisis of maintaining the business.
Yeah, I mean, everything, the world that we're living in right now is upside down, as you know. So indoor for us closed. Ironically enough, it closed the day before St. Patrick's Day, which is our biggest day of the year in terms of revenue. So indoor closed on the 16th of March. And we decided at that point to close the business and sort of wait until we would reopen for indoor. And we eventually got open for the resumption of indoor service at some point in September, October. And then they closed us back down again. But during that time, when we reopened the indoor, we started to develop the takeaway to go delivery infrastructure because it was revenue streams and services that we hadn't previously offered. So we've kept that going. We're obviously doing it at a very high level. The difficulty is that the revenue is just not strong enough or robust enough to kind of make up for the overhead. So we're trying our best to make that work. And fortunately, the next wave of stimulus has passed, which will give us a runway to keep going. So yeah, we're staying busy. We're tightening up systems back of house and doing everything we can to stay sharp and be ready for when indoor does come back online again. And we're also building an outside dining component that we're going to launch for St. Patrick's Day of this year. So we're trying to do as many things as possible to stay in touch with our customers and to keep revenue coming into the business. So
Jack, you have quite the work ethic, and I think that's very apparent from some of the awards you received. I want you to tell me some of your foundations, as in when you think about stories from when you were a child,
yeah.
where do you think that work ethic came from? Like some of your earliest memories of what drove you for excellence.
So there's a couple of different things. The first thing I would say that drove me towards excellence would have been when I was in I think you guys call it high school, but I was 12, 13 years of age, and I moved from a secondary school, we call it, in Ireland, and went to a grammar school, which is a higher caliber of school. And I only got into that school because my father actually worked in it. So I went into that school, much higher caliber of teaching. Tests were more difficult, and I sort of brought in the same mentality of the previous school, where I was like, I can just coast by. I don't need to put in the work. And I had a chemistry test, and the I did the chemistry test bluffing. And the chemistry teacher read the exam results from top to bottom, and sure enough, I came dead last. So I left after that class. Was our break. So I went to the break hall, and I remember sitting, and I had like whatever I was drinking, an orange juice or whatever, and a piece of fruit. And it was at that point where I was like, nobody is ever going to say that I came last in anything ever again. So that's where that part came from. It was as if I really decided at that point, if I'm going to do anything or put my name on something, it's going to be the best that it can be. And
Yeah.
after that point, I obviously done really well at school. But in terms of the industry, and how I got into the hospitality sector, I come from a very working class background. And I mean, you experience this as a father now. Yeah, and I will do obviously in the coming years, but I was constantly asking my mum and dad for money to buy like shoes or whatever the latest trend or whatever is, and my mum and dad were my mum's response was, if you want it, you've got to go out and work for it. And at that age, I was 15, 16 years old, and I went out and got a job in the bar industry, and the rest, as I say, is history. That's how it all worked
Yeah,
out.
I like that story, by the way. And for reference, my parents just didn't give me money. They were always like, if you want money, you have to pick up a job.
Yeah,
And so even at the age of like 10, I knew if I didn't mow the lawn or something, there just wasn't gonna be money.
yeah.
I want to bridge on what you're saying there and say you're talking about how you've carried that bar of excellence into the hospitality industry. Tell me the story about your mentor and the 2 cubes of ice.
Yeah, so I was working away in some bars in Belfast, and I heard that there was this one bar particularly that was really doing great things, and it was ran by a guy called Sean Muldoon, who's my now business partner. And I went to this educational program called the Connoisseurs Club, and I went to that, and I seen these bartenders from all over the world, all over America. The celebrities of America come over and talk to us about cocktails. And I thought, wow, there's definitely something in this if you do it on an elite level. If you do it at a honky tonk bar or a dive bar down the street, that's one level. But there's also like the 5-star hotel bar or the best cocktail bar. There's different levels to everything in life. I was told if you want to be elite in this industry in Belfast at that time, you had to go and work at the Merchant Hotel, which was ran by Sean Muldoon. And I remember having my first meeting with him, and he said to me there was 2 different types of people in life, and he brought over these 2 pieces of ice. One was completely see-through, perfectly cut, no imperfections. And the other part had imperfections, impurities. It was cloudy. It looked like a ice cube you would take from your a commercial fridge, or for a commercial refrigerator. And he said there's 2 different types of people. There's these people here that chase perfection to catch excellence, obviously because perfection is just not attainable, but you've got to chase it. And then you have these other people who just settle. They're happy with what they've got. And I was like, right, this guy's speaking my language.
I did process design and the Japanese methodologies and all that. And one of the things that I tell people is, if you ever want to know what it's like to be in the corporate world and do process design, look at the motto for Lexus, which is the relentless pursuit
Yeah.
of perfection.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you achieve it.
Yeah.
It's just the relentless pursuit towards perfection.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. So talk to me about what your life was like when you were 22 years old.
Oh, Jesus, it was crazy at that point. So we had just opened the bar. The bar had just opened. I believe it was when I was 22 is when we won the first wave of awards. And I was fortunate enough now we had opened. It took us a couple of years to open the bar. We went through a whole bunch of difficulty getting the bar open. And a lot of pressure and a lot of, like, every time people were speaking to us, it was, when's the bar open, when's it's happening, and a lot of doubts and stuff like that. But we finally got it open and the bar took off. It just completely took off, and we won 3 awards at Tales of the Cocktail, which is our version of the Oscars in our industry. And I was fortunate to win World's Best Bartender, and at 22, I was the youngest ever recipient of that award, and it was just crazy, you know. I think back to that time now, and it's just a blur, because it was just work, drink, work. It was just a complete blur, 100-hour weeks. So I can't remember much about it, apart from the fact that I know that it was like 1,000 miles down the freeway, and I knew the wheels were going to come off at some point, but I was just riding the wave until that point happened, you know.
So, and that kind of leads to the question I was going to ask you, which was, how long did that feeling, that sort of high of winning the award at the record young age and the Oscars of bartending and bars, how long did that feeling last, and what was the next stage of it?
I mean, it ended pretty much the day after. The addiction type issues and stuff like that, and my obsessiveness, which I'm sure we're going to touch on in a bit, is a double-edged sword. It enables me to achieve these great things, but also is what buries me, and if I get into kind of destructive tendencies. But it constantly feels like you're taking stuff in to fill something, and when I like to fill a hole, it's like it's difficult to describe. Hopefully that makes sense, but it was the day after the awards. I was like, right, I still feel exactly the same. I was like, I was hoping that award would like give some type of meaning or fulfillment, or, you know, make me feel whole, and it didn't. You know, I woke up the next day and I felt exactly the same. And then it was like the only thing I can describe it as similar to is like a dog that catches a toy, and then it catches a toy and it's like, what do you do with it? So that was the feeling. That's what happened right immediately after we won the awards. And then that initiated a kind of downward spiral into insanity.
All right. So that's quite a story there.
Yeah.
Tell me about, when you talk about the downward spiral, tell me a little bit about March 25th, 2016.
Yeah, so as I said to you, so we won the awards in 2013, at the middle of the summer of that time, and it was sort of I was like, I had achieved a lifelong goal of being recognized as one of the best bartenders in the world, and that was a very selfish goal. There was nothing really about anybody else at that point, but so you had that, and you had that kind of arrogance and confidence that comes with that. That was a couple of years, and then it really started to go downhill in terms of alcohol stopped being beneficial. It's like I was using it as a crutch to deal with the pressures. It was my main coping strategy, and it was a coping strategy that just was not helping anymore. It was becoming detrimental. So prior to the date that you just mentioned, I had tons of anxiety, and I went to doctors and psychiatrists and stuff, and they believe they diagnosed me with about 5 different things. I had bipolar, I was generalized anxiety disorder, a whole bunch of things, and they just threw medication. And I remember coming out of one session particularly where they gave me like 100 pills of Ativan or Lorazepam, like it was like a real strong benzodiazepine. And I remember taking that thinking, but they told me to take it as you need it, which is the most insane thing to say to somebody who's got an addictive personality. But I came out, took one, and thought, right, I'm cured. I felt great, and then I went back home and started drinking again.
They told you to take it
As you need it.
needed.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
insane, like totally insane. When you think back, like it's just it defies belief. But yeah, so I started. I was then was drinking benzodiazepines, and then I tried to stop drinking, and then I was like sort of not drinking, but still sort of drinking for a couple of months, and then March 25th came, and I had a big fight with my then partner, and she had left to go on a pre-planned trip back to Ireland, and that was the night where I was just like, fuck it, it was like I'm gonna go out, and it was like to me it was the first conscious decision that I had made to go out and get absolutely hammered. Before it was always like a byproduct. But before it was like I was trying to chase escaping as opposed to getting drunk. But this time I was like, I'm going out to get hammered. And I went out that night, and on my way back, I obviously got very drunk. And on my way back, I started picking up sleeping tablets from different stores. And then I went back home. So I'm able to piece from this part back from credit card receipts and obviously from the paramedics. But I went back and blended that all up and started drinking it like a sort of sleeping smoothie. And I must have at that point phoned the paramedics. It must have been like a cry for help or whatever. And I phoned the paramedics, and fortunately they came, took me in, pumped my stomach. And then on the 26th of March, I wake up in the hospital with my stomach pumped. And essentially by all at that stage in the psychiatric unit and on suicide watch, so that for me was the 26th of March was my rock bottom, but it was necessary in order to kind of springboard into the stuff that we'll probably touch on in a bit.
And what a way to word that, where you talk about one part of you was like, this was the first time I'm consciously going to destroy myself.
Yeah.
And then there was an unconscious part of you that said, I'm not ready to destroy myself. The part that called the paramedics.
Yeah, 100%.
Even though you consciously don't remember that decision.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me how the conscious part was trying to destroy you, but the unconscious part said there's still more to the story.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Jack, you work in an industry with temptation. I think about someone in your spot, and I think of you're kind of synonymous with like the rock stars who get the hit album, and now that you are successful, you now have access to a world of distractions that were not necessarily there.
100%, yeah.
So the more successful you are in this industry, the more distractions. Everybody wants you to come to their bar. Everybody wants to spoil you, win you over. Talk to me about how Jack separates his identity from who Jack considers himself, and what role alcohol plays in that identity.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a fantastic question. Before the 26th of March, my life was like everything was intertwined. And I was like, who am I? Like, it was a lot of like introspective work that I had to kind of go through post March of 2016 to kind of really figure that all out. But I mean, during that time when I got clarity, when I got sober, when I started doing the work, I was able to kind of refine my raison d'etre, if you will, my why. And that had always been to be the best version of myself. When I sign off on something, or when I walk away, I can go, right, that's the best I've got. And that was always the thing. And alcohol was a project, and the bar is a project, running as a project. Oh, I have all these other projects now, but I was able to kind of decouple those two things and sort of zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And I've now I've applied that underlying kind of motivator, my primary motivator, the many different things. So it's not just all in one basket and all in on the bar stuff. I have these other things that I love doing and give me joy, and also give me joy when I zoom back into the hospitality sector, So that was a big deal for me when I was in our early recovery. And obviously I go back to that all the time, every day, to kind of to make sure that I'm giving my all in everything that I do.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about one of the first you say you found other ways to sort of have an outlet and other things that brought you value outside of the industry. Can you tell me what one of the early hobbies you sort of picked up when you decided that you were going to confront, and I'm using your words here from an interview,
Yeah.
enough with the excuses, enough with blaming others. It's time to get real and run towards my demons instead of running away from them. So when you make that pivot and when you make that decision and you say, this is who I am now, and this is how I'm going to be, what are some of the rules that you put in place for yourself that keep that momentum going?
Yeah, I mean, there was a scene in this might sound crazy. There's a scene in The Matrix where Neo turns around and it's the first time he sort of walks towards everything, and he's going to combat all the Andersons that come running at him instead of running away from them. Do you know? And it really,
Yeah, the train station.
yeah, the train. Yeah, you're right. The train station. And that was what it was like when I started getting into sobriety. It was I always had an excuse. It was somebody else. It was the city. It was because it was bright. It was because it was dark. It was raining. So you know, there was always an excuse. And when I woke up that day and on the 26th, it was like, right, I'm going to own this. Anything that happens, I'm going to own all I can control is me. So I'm going to control that portion of it and really rededicate myself to accountability, to ownership. And developing healthy coping strategies to kind of deal with life on life's term. And in terms of dealing with that every day, you know, I just keep I'm able to kind of play it back. So if there's a tempting, like if I get tempted by alcohol or tempted to indulge in a destructive behavior that I had before, I'm able to kind of, that puts me one step closer to being the person that I don't want to be as opposed to the person that I do want to be. I remember there was the tale of the two wolves. It's a story, like an American story, and it's a grandfather and a grandson. And there's two wolves. One is happy, is peaceful, is serene, and the other one is angry and aggressive and all these other things. And the grandson asks, "Hey, which wolf do you become?" And the grandfather responds, "The one that you feed." And I actually have that hanging downstairs, that quote, because I believe it's every day. Every day you choose the direction you want to be, the person you want to be, and the direction you want to go in.
That's exactly right, man. I love that because especially when people see who they consider to be successful, and it's as if they think that they don't have the same demons as all of us do. It's just we've learned how to either ignore them or manage them, but it's always there.
100%.
It's always there. And that term, by the way, even if it's in a demon in terms of you're looking to create this big project or achieve this victory or write this book, there's this voice that has been dubbed the resistance inside of your head, and the resistance will never leave you. You can leave the planet, you can go anywhere you want. It's always there. And I like that methodology and that story about the wolves because it accentuates the fact every day you wake up, you have a stake in your hand and you have to pick which one of these two are going to get.
100%. Right? Yeah.
And it's there's no denying they're both there. There's no denying they're both hungry. And in fact, you could probably stretch that metaphor a little bit and say, by feeding the angry wolf, you feel like you're buying some safety.
Yeah.
Because the angry wolf is a little more threatening, right?
100%.
And when you feed that one, you're like, well, I'm safe for now because I fed that one.
Well,
and of course, it shows that you're going to have to deal with the compounding interest.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to it's society we find ourselves in today. There's a lot of instant gratification, or like these like everybody gets immediately happy or immediately sad over the next big thing, and I think a lot of people do not like to do. I'd say the majority of people do not like to do the tough work or do the one extra chore or the one extra mile or the 5 extra minutes of work. People don't want to do it.
Yeah, I don't want to typecast the young generation too much, but it's like anytime you talk to someone who we'll just say is 10 years younger than You
Yeah.
are. So if I'm talking to someone who's at least 10 years younger than me, whenever they are saying like, how do you do this? Or how do you do that? The first thing they try to do is go, well, how do I skip the work?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get that you did this. Okay, but just give me the
Yeah.
shortcut. Give me the cliff notes. And I did hear you say on the interviews, people were asking you, what are some shortcuts or what are some tips you would do to build the best bar? And you were like, I could fill a book with it, but the answer is start and then take, methodically get better every day,
100%. Yeah.
right?
100%.
You got to jump into the fire. You got to feel the fire. You don't get to skip the
Yeah.
fire. And I don't want to tangent too much on this. Smartphones, perfect distraction from your demons, because there's always some little dopamine hit waiting on you.
100%. Yeah.
It's only one scroll
Yeah.
away.
I totally agree.
So let's talk. You've picked up some pretty good habits, specifically running. Tell me how you got into running.
So what happened, I ran before I got sober, but I ran, I think I ran at that point to kind of manage weight as opposed to really anything else, but when I got out of hospital, I was in hospital for a week, and it was something that I turned to just immediately. I was running slow at that point, but I was literally running 70, 80 miles a week as soon as I got out of rehab from nothing.
Oh, 70 to 80 miles a week.
Yeah, I was running so I was in outpatient rehabilitation.
Jack,
so I was running.
Jack, let me stop you there. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy in the context of I was never running that amount. But when I was in outpatient rehab, I ran to the center, ran back.
Okay, so this is the voice of future Daniel long after this interview was recorded. And I just wanted to pause this interview for you to think about 70 to 80 miles a week. Let's just say that you ran, I don't know, 5 days a week. 5 days a week. We're talking 15 miles a day. Think of running a half marathon 6 days a week. That's what Jack is talking about doing here right after rehab. Folks, that is something that the fact that his body could even handle that after detoxing is an amazing feat in and of itself. Okay, back to the interview.
I didn't take any transport. I just ran. It was like Forrest Gump type stuff. I just ran everywhere.
Yeah.
Man, and for me, that just gave me, it was like another, it was structured, I'm a firm believer now in routine sets you free, and discipline sets you free, yeah, so that was a big thing that I tried to work in immediately, and running was a huge part of that. When you've ran and you've ran and you've put those miles in the bank, and it takes air out of the balloon. I just feel a lot more calmer and a lot more clear.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really levels you out. I think people underestimate how much it levels you out the rest of the day when you've gotten that sort of physical activity. And I used to get on days, there was a particular day of the week where I'd do these huge hill routines. And the question I would get the rest of the day, whether it was at the office or in my personal life, people would go, man, you seem like you're just like drunk or mellowed out. And I'm like, no. Man, anytime I run intervals, I'm completely lax the rest of the day. My kids love it because I'm so easy on them. I'm like, guys, we don't have to do anything tonight. We can just watch it. They love that part of me. The part of me that will buy ice cream and chill and watch a movie, they're like, we love it.
Yeah, it's the same with my wife. If I get overly anxious or whatever, she's like, go out and run.
Oh yeah, yeah. In couples, that support that, it's an amazing part of how you can still keep that focus in a relationship and not, because that anxiety has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
You have to find a channel for it. I don't know if you get a hobby or you get this kind of outlet or that outlet, but that anxiety has to go somewhere. And doing it in a physical way, you kind of spare some feelings.
100%.
So tell me about when you met your wife.
Yeah, so that's another amazing gift that came after I got sober. So I got sober and I made a conscious decision not to be with anyone for a while, or be in a relationship. So I wasn't in a relationship, and then once I was really ready to be back into one, I was I was sort of already had my eyes on Katie, who's my wife, and I went to mutual friends and said to them, "Have you got anybody I could date?" Knowing full well that they were going to say Katie. So that happened, and we talked on Instagram for a bit, and then we ended up meeting. And she has a sister that's in recovery, so she got the issues, and she was very like she knew the story, she knew what I was about because of the friends and where my journey was up until that point. And yeah, I met her, and it was fantastic. We went down on a couple of dates fairly quickly, and then I had to go on the road for something for at the right at we were writing a book, and then we picked up where we left off, and I came back, and yeah, I fell in love. And I remember when I was sober, I was like, when I just got sober, I was like, yeah, I'm not getting married, I'm gonna like just be by myself and all that type of stuff. And fast forward a year or two, and I had met the woman that I was going to marry, and we married this year. We had plans to go back to Ireland and do the ceremony, but obviously with the pandemic, we had to change those plans, and we're hoping we're able to do it in November this year. I'm fairly confident that that'll be fine. And but we did a great back garden ceremony in New Jersey with select family. And then we also found out during the summer that or was it earlier in the summer? But we found out this year that we're pregnant, and we're expecting on at the end of February. So crazy. I find myself waking up in the mornings or before I go to bed thinking, like, can't believe that this is happening. And like, when you zoom back into like pre-March 2016,
Yeah. So talk to me now that you have a child on the way and you're clearly very happily married. Talk to me about what you do today to keep your edge.
Yeah. So for me,
And you said routines. Routines are
huge.
a
Yeah,
big part of
huge.
that. So you can sort of outline some of the routine if you like, but maybe give us some epiphanies for how Jack manages to stay balanced.
Yeah. So for me, working out, obviously running is huge. It's a huge part. It's always been a huge part, and it will continue to be a huge part. I have we have a Peloton, and I cycle a bit, but running is always it has been the main thing. And you always have these excuses, like when you wake up and it's raining outside or it's cold, or there's always these excuses that you have to kind of battle yourself to get out and do the runs. But the kind of the quote that I use to get myself out is that I never regret going for a run. I always
Yeah.
regret I regret not going for a run. I regret buying into the excuses. And then you were talking about it, the stake that you were putting in, because there's always an excuse. So I look at running and working out like brushing my teeth. It's something that just has to happen.
Yeah, and talking about brushing your teeth, okay, and the running when it's raining outside. What I think the most underestimated part of being someone who, and I don't mean like for New Year's or something, but for someone who consistently year after year puts in the work is it makes you the kind of person that doesn't get intimidated by obstacles. For example, and a common obstacle, by the way, is raining outside, right? It teaches you what you're doing is you're putting deposits in this bank account to say, no, I'm the kind of person that even if things aren't ideal conditions, I'm still
100%.
going to find a way to make this thing
100%.
work,
Yeah.
right?
It's I read David Goggins' book "Can't Hurt Me," and the thing that he called
Yeah.
callous in mind. And I love that. It's harden your mind, and like embrace hardship, and charge forward. And I live my I sort of I there's don't get me wrong, it's not 100% batting average. We're all human. But I live my life by getting up and getting on with it, and pushing through, and so running is a huge part of it. Reading for me is huge. I'm a massive reader. I read.
Yeah, you've been reading a book a week this
So
year.
last year I started out with the goal of a book a week, and I ended up I think it was 74. I ended up with, so I was reading more than that.
And these were all
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm not a big fiction lover. I love reading books, whether it's today or hundreds, 200 years ago, from people who succeed. I like to see the common
Yeah.
denominators. I like business books. I like books about political things, or like I love reading about like things that are going on in Mexico, like Jefe, Chapo Guzman, anything that's like factual and interesting. I enjoy reading. So
Hmm.
so I read 74 last year, and I think I'm on my fifth or sixth already for the year, because I've started listening to books while I'm running now, as opposed to listening to music. So it's sort of cheating,
Yeah.
because I get out and run so much. I'm able to just churn through books.
Man, so first of all, I tallied it up the other day. I made a list and I even exported it to Excel. I've listened to, well, it's about
That's
600
awesome.
audiobooks. And and now that's over the
Yeah,
last 20 years. But I have been with Audible since like the late 90s. But I get so sick and tired of defending that, because people will go, "You didn't read the book, you listened to it." And I'm like,
yeah.
"Give me a break, man." Okay, this is when I had a long commute each day, but I'm going to defend you a little bit there. There are certain books that I insist on either doing on my Kindle or
Yeah,
on paper, because if it's too detailed, I
yeah,
don't listen to it well. But we had talked previously, and we talked about how we like
yeah.
bios and memoirs. Sir Walter Isaacson's on Leonardo da Vinci. That was a game changer.
I'll have to add that to the list. I've read I
Oh,
read his book on Steve Jobs, which was incredible.
Steve
Yeah,
Jobs, yeah, he did it.
yeah,
Jobs, Einstein, and a couple of others, but that one on Da Vinci, I wanted to do that one in paperback or Kindle, because you had to look at the paintings for
yeah.
a lot of the stuff. As far as self-development, I don't know what your favorite book was from last year. My favorite book from last year, as far as self-development, was Atomic Habits. That book just, boom, knocked it out of the park. Whenever I can find a new podcast interview with James Clear,
Yeah.
who's the author, the guy's amazing, man. And he continues to grow. I follow his newsletter. The guy, he's going to be one of those people that 20, 30, 100 years from now, they're still
It's
quoting
amazing.
him. Like Ralph not quite Ralph Waldo Emerson in that sense. But. So your best self-dev book recommendation from last year is what?
Self-development. Hold on, I'll have to pull up my list, because I read so many great books in different.
Oh, you can just pick a couple that stood out.
So 2020 books. So I love, they're not personal development, but I love all of Jim Collins's books, which pertain exclusively to.
Oh yeah, Good to Great, Built to
They're
Last,
incredible
all
books.
those. Yeah, read those.
And I felt that they were excellent. In terms of personal development, the Peter Principle I loved. That's the Peter Principle is everybody rises to their level of incompetence. So it's basically people are promoted to their level of incompetence, be it in whatever job you're in or whatever industry you're in, and it's all about outworking it, like ensuring you're keeping on top, and then like you're educating yourself, you're pushing yourself to ensure that you don't reach your level of incompetence. So I found that I found it very intriguing. But the best book I read that helped me, I didn't read this last year. It was probably early into my recovery, was Stephen Covey's Start With Why. I really felt that book was a book that was able to help me decouple from the.
Okay, hold on. I think, do you mean Simon Sinek?
Yes, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Or no, Stephen Covey's
Stephen Covey is Seven Habits of Highly
Yeah, sorry, I'm
Effective
getting
People.
confused.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both are profound authors, but yeah, Start With
both
Why
of
is
those
a
books are
fantastic
incredible.
book.
But yeah, Start With Why is I mean, Seven Habits is incredible as well. I got those two mixed up there, but yeah, Start With Why I felt was like we all like really helping to crystallize the like a lot of people like that put their whole identity around a job, which is a what, as opposed to what is driving all those, so
Yeah.
it really helped me separate the Jack and the industry and Dead Rapid to what is my actual what's driving all of this.
Absolutely, man. Simon Sinek, and I do sort of watch some of his. He's been doing a lot of
Yeah.
recordings since the pandemic and talking. But one of my biggest takeaways from that book, because he commonly cites Apple,
Yeah.
the entire book, about how they get you to believe in an Apple, even though. By the way, I'm not an Apple person. I can sit here and tell a friend, tell me one thing that your MacBook or iPhone can do that my half the
Yeah.
price Android or Dell laptop can't.
Yeah.
They can't. They generally just go, but I just like it more. I like it more. And that's what he has done so well. One of my favorite takeaways from that book was this. In Mac commercials, you never see groups of people because they want you to feel like you are an absolute individual. And so their marketing is usually people by themselves, sort of being themselves, versus a group of people like arm in arm, like a team. Teams are like, right?
Yeah, they've nailed it. Apple have nailed it.
Yeah. So I know that you're in some recovery. You're kind of taking a little bit of time off running, but tell me what a typical week of running looks like for you when you're training.
So when I'm training, it's generally I'm fluctuating between like 60, low 60s, high 60s. That's generally it. But I would do that. I would do that level. I would do that level for about. I do a cycle for 6 months. To getting up to a marathon. I was running over the summer. I did a 1,000 miles of summer, so my weeks were 60 miles, and it was like 8-9 mile runs a day. But I was just doing that because there was so much craziness with the pandemic and the summer and all the unrest. So I was like, I just needed to get out of the house, dump all the energy, and that was a good accountability tool. But yeah, it's about 60 miles a week if I'm training, but I'm probably not going to run a race now with the baby, probably not until next year, until 2022.
Yeah.
But normally, like I generally hover when I'm off training, like I'm generally hovering around 40 to 50, like that's sort of where that's my sweet spot.
That's a little more manageable, but I'm going to tell you, the fact that your body can handle that type of mileage puts you in a different echelon from most people. Most people, when they get to the 30-mile mark, it's tough for them to hold that in anything beyond that. Of course, the elites, the Olympians, they generally do about 100.
Like to me, that I can't even fathom that, because when I'm in that 60 to 70 territory, I find it tough, but I'm fine to sustain it. But I'm like, when I'm in that zone, I'm like, how do these guys do another 50 on top of that? It just blows my mind.
Yeah, it goes back to doing the work, though. That's one of the things where it takes them like 6-7 years of running consistently high mileage and being diligent about having an off season and not trying to do it nonstop, which is a big problem for me. I don't know when to turn it off a lot of time, and I end up getting hurt. Tell me a little bit about what nutritionally, have you found any type of tips or tricks or foods that give you better thought, clarity, performance, or help you maintain an edge?
So with the food side of things, that's something that I've come into 2021 trying to be a bit more disciplined, being more disciplined about, because with not drinking and not, like, I do everything pretty much right apart from the that. And I'm mostly, I'd say, if you were to ask me, I'm about 75% healthy and 25% not healthy. So I think that is probably not a good range to be in. So I'm definitely working on that. It's definitely not. No.
Very.
So yeah, definitely eating less at the bar. And my wife is a phenomenal cook, so she cooks often, and it's all very clean, like lean proteins, vegetables, whole grains. So I find that type of stuff it's great for fueling the longer runs. So yeah.
How old are you now?
32. I turned 32 in January 1.
Oh,
so
yeah. You've still got 6 or 7 years on the more of a free ride as far as nutrition.
I don't know. I think in the past couple of years, and maybe in the past year or two, when I look at food, I tend to put on. I can feel myself putting on weight, So I've.
Not if you're running 60 or 70 miles.
So I'm trying to rephrase. I definitely I looked at things, but I looked at, like, I can outrun. I can eat whatever I want because I'm going to run it all off. And to an extent that's true, but I also think that creates bad habits. So I'm trying to get rid of that thinking.
Yeah, it goes back to the two wolves, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're presented with the fact that you've burnt easily 1,500 calories that day if you ran 2 hours, okay, and you get home and you're like, I can eat whatever I want, and I'm not going to gain the weight. But what my personal take is, how do I want to feel about it?
That's the biggest thing.
So it's not to say that, you're going to be able to sit there and eat a handful of iceberg lettuce or anything like that, but there's smart choices, and then there's full on debauchery, and there's a place for full on debauchery. Like when you finish a race, go out for pizza, have a beer, have a burger, whatever. But on the whole, it's those two wolves are going to determine what kind of the way you feel about yourself, not only just emotionally, but your energy level and how well you recover. Yeah. That's a big one, because as you get older, you have to recover with the right fuels, or you find yourself going into the next workout tired and your blood sugar.
Yeah. So, I mean, I couldn't agree more. So that's definitely stuff that I pay attention to. And even the likes of sleep, I never measured sleep. That's a huge one. And I got that, Whoop, and it's definitely helped retrain my brain, a lot more into.
My girlfriend got one today.
She'll be addicted to it. But it definitely helps you. Because I would have been like, if I worked later in the night, I'll be like, oh, I'll just shave an hour off and get up at the same time tomorrow. Where it definitely forces you to be a bit more
Yeah. Someone's got to pick up the tab on this and sleep. There's no dodging it. If you miss an hour of sleep, you can push through, but at some point somebody's gonna have to pick up the tab. Right?
Yeah, so it'll be. I'm sure she's gonna love it, because I definitely found it very beneficial.
Yeah, so I'm guessing, I don't know because we haven't talked about this, but heart rate variability is what you're tracking 100%, with the Whoop strap, and that's highly impacted by your quality of sleep over time. And what I do now is, if I don't have a great night of rest, and if it's like 3 hours of rest or something, which is obviously terrible, I'll just walk that day. If I can get 5 or 6 hours of rest, I'll run, but I won't let my heart rate go high. So I'm not allowed to get carried away if I didn't get a good night of rest. Outside of that, I can give myself permission to say, you want to push and see what you got today, that's fine, you got a good night rest. But I've become particularly methodical about that and saying, I'm going to protect you from yourself by putting these rules in place. You're not allowed to push yourself to the extreme just because it was scheduled for today. You scheduled that hard run today, but you only slept 4 hours.
No, you're 100% right. It's just more accountability tools. That's really it.
Yeah. It's self-awareness. That's what we're looking for, right? Self-awareness. Jack, this has been fantastic, man. You gave so much about your story and your habits and your routines, and I hope that a lot of people are going to listen to this and be inspired to step up their game and be the clear piece of ice in anything that 100%. They choose.
And listen, as I said to you, it's not. With me, it's every person is going to make mistakes, or one day it's not going to be great, but it's all about dusting yourself on and getting on with it, and not allowing yourself to get stuck in the rut. Because one thing I found with people, unless they go, and even these like new January resolutions, it's like they do it and then they don't do it one day, and then it's just the wheels come off, so progress, not perfection, is one of those slogans. And I love that, because if you're moving forward, you're moving in the right direction.
Well said, Jack.
Well, thank you for having me.
So you can tell it was one of the very last lines that he said that really stuck with me when I was chewing with the idea of throwing this into the recycle bin. I hope you enjoyed it. Send me a note. Let me know what you think. If you want me to continue the podcast, I highly suggest that you write a review and share it with someone you care about that you feel could learn from this message. This has been Daniel Lucas signing off. I look forward to another episode of Chasing Energy with you. Thank you.